So today I'm going to be teaching you all part of lesson 3 of my unit plan, which is called Leaves of Change. The big idea for the unit is passage over time, or passage of time, and so it's for first grade. And so the one thing that I thought would be kind of easy and fun to focus on is how trees change throughout the seasons and like as they grow. And it's just kind of a fun activity for first grade. It's pretty easy, and you can connect it to science, which I think is kind of beneficial to have that connection to like a homeroom for younger kids. And so today what we're going to be doing is kind of the introduction to the lesson, which is going to be kind of where they get a lot of the time with like kind of focusing on the elements of art, because in this lesson it's about color and line. And so that's kind of what we're going to get started on today. And so the engaged part of my lesson is taking the kids outside to like sketch the actual like trees and stuff, which I put in my PowerPoint kind of as the beginning part of the lesson for y'all to do for like 3 to 5 minutes. So I wasn't going to show y'all sketching for 3 to 5 minutes because I felt like y'all really didn't need to see that. But the second part of that is kind of I put in there to collect some tree leaves, some wood, other various materials that could be used in a collage itself, or could be used to do like texture rubbings. And so here next to me, got this kind of plate here. I just have various leaves. I have some different colors and textures and sizes. Mainly the textures and sizes is going to be what matters when it comes to like the rubbings. But if you want to use them like in your collage itself, then that's kind of where the color comes in. But the one thing to focus on is that some of the more like kind of dead ones, like as of right now, since the leaves aren't really changing colors, there's not as many, but those ones will stay kind of more how you find them, versus the green ones are going to eventually like start to decay and fall apart. So the collage won't look the same from when the kids maybe pick them up on day 1, and then it's like 2 weeks later, depending on how your school does your art classes. Like those leaves aren't going to be the same. And so you kind of don't want to get your students' hopes up with like looking for those. And then I also have like this little piece of a flower to make a video here, and then like a block of wood that I found outside. And so to get started, we'll start with a leaf. I actually have some examples here first, which I can show. And so these are some of the leaf ones I did. Yeah, stays up. And so these are the ones like with pencil, and then I did colored pencil. And so those are gonna look a lot better than I did some here with marker. And so you don't really get as much texture in those. That one's the stick, and then I have the leaves. This one up here is like kind of the block of wood, which you can see some more in, which I'll talk about when I do that one. And then that was the block of wood with the pencil, so you can see it didn't really have a whole lot popping up. And then I do have the pencil ones for the leaf, and then the stick on this side. And then one other thing which I'll show you is how to get more texture when you actually feel it, because you do feel some of the texture when you just do kind of the normal rubbing, like on these ones, especially on like the sticks, you're gonna get those bumps. But then also some of these leaves have some bumps, so I'm gonna show kind of some tricks to kind of help get those. And so for that, I just have 2 pieces of like kind of normal sketchbook paper. In the PowerPoint, it showed that like the final thing would be like 18 by 24, which is the size that the pad is that I'm kind of using right now. Since I didn't have scissors, I only had an X-Acto knife, so I'm kind of using this as like my mat for that. Since I am teaching this in quarantine, that I have some limited supplies that I wouldn't have like ideally to do this in a classroom, but it's kind of some stuff maybe I'll have at home as well. And so the first thing I'm going to do is pick out just like a couple leaves. Some of the better ones to use are the green ones when doing the rubbings, just because, I mean, some of the dead ones, especially like the spine, I guess, I don't know what the exact name is called, is going to be still pretty prominent, but since they're more delicate, like if they start cracking under, like if you want to use the same one over and over again, it might start to fall apart, versus the fresh ones are going to hold up a lot more. And especially if like kids are going to do multiple days, what you could do is like on the first day they go out and find their own, and then even on like the second or third day that you're doing this lesson, depending on how spread out again they are based on your school, you could, like, in the morning just kind of pick up some leaves on your way into the building and then just kind of keep those throughout the day and then, like, toss them back outside at the end of the day and just get fresh ones every time you have that class or grade level that you're doing it with. And so, but back to this, it's going to be just like the leaf here. You can do it both ways, since I really prefer the strong line that this one gives, because that's kind of almost how kids, like, draw leaves. Like, when you think about it, kind of do like that, you know, elongated oval shape, and then the big line down the middle, and then the kind of like the little lines. And so this one kind of gives you more of that prominent line, but I'll do it both ways to show y'all. And then the other thing is that I'm gonna do color pencils. And so the thing is, like, you can, I have like 2 shades of green here with me right now, and so I'm like, you can do one leaf one color and one leaf another color, or you can mix them, because it's kind of the nice thing, since color pencils aren't 100% solid, unlike markers, you can get more variation, which is a really nice thing, since we are trying to focus on color in this. And so you just kind of put it under, like, the paper. I know a lot of us have probably done texture rubbings, but definitely that would be something you'd, you know, almost want to verify with your kids, like telling them that that's what you do, you know, it's not like it's on top, and then, like, you color, and then just get, like, an outline with, like, a hollow inside, which, I mean, that is something you could do if you wanted to, I don't know, kind of use, like, the negative space, which could be a really interesting thing to experiment with, but kind of just like the basic ones. And again, like, you know, I'm keeping these loose, but you could have kids, like, almost like glue them to a board to do them all at once, and so then they just go over the entire board, kind of like the ones that you have, like the little plastic ones you can buy that are just like zigzags or like polka dots, and that you, like, use with crayons. And so crowns are also a really great thing for, like, texture rubbing, but I don't have any. And so, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and start rubbing. And you're going to want to apply a decent amount of pressure, just so that way you do get all the little lines. And then also you could start off, like, really light on texture and then go, like, deeper, or when you go back over, go lighter if you're just kind of wanting to get some of that color in there, like I did with this one, because that was the same go around. Or here, I'll do another one here, and I'm starting off this one pretty light, the first go around, and then I'm gonna get darker that next. And the one thing is, like, you kind of start to realize that since you can't really see what your shape is, you got to make sure you go, like, a little further each way, so you kind of have that outline, which is where, like, kids can cut along if you want. They want to use these to, like, cut out, like, as if it was like a magazine picture. And so, which is one way I really recommend. And so, I haven't done this layering of these ones, which I now realize I really like, which is on this top one. This might be kind of hard to see about this, but I just did the jade green at first, and then I went back over it with the yellow green really light, versus on this one I did the yellow green really light, and then I went back with the jade green on top. And so it's just, you can see a little bit more details even on here, but definitely when looking at it in person, you can see just kind of a lot more texture. It definitely looks a lot more lifelike. And so the one thing about the flower that I used is that, like, when I feel it, you can feel, like, some little bumps, and there's even some little dots, which I don't really 100% know if you can see. Maybe. Alright, and so the one thing about that is that I did on this one, which I can feel, is that if you look at the back, there's actually just these little polka dots I did with the pencil. And so that's the one thing about having this, like, surface to work on that kind of gives, because then if you kind of sit there and jab into it a bit, it does pretty good. And so you'll just kind of see where your lines are, and then your texture rubbing on that side, and then just put it down, and then you can just kind of, you can do it in a pattern if you want it to be consistent, if you feel like there is a pattern in your leaf, but if it's just kind of random, you can just do that. Okay, and so again, on this side, it's not really much texture. There is a little bit, but the thing about doing it, like, on the front, if you did want this texture, is it makes it kind of hard, unless, like, on this one, the kind of dots are a little bit of, like, a weird kind of, like, brownish green gray shade. And so if you did have a colored pencil that, or like another type of colored material that you like, or the students like, they could do that on the front. It's just harder since sometimes with stabbing so much, like, you do get, like, those wispy lines from your dots. But then you turn it over, and if you feel it, It's like kind of like Braille, I guess would be the best way to describe it, because even then when you just feel your normal texture rubbing, you can feel kind of like that spine of the leaf there. And so this is definitely a really great way to get kids really thinking about texture, because I know they're kind of like, well, it looks like that, but it doesn't feel like it. So the idea of drawing texture, I know for me as a kid, was really hard, just because you're kind of like, texture something I feel, it's not something you see. I mean, you do, but you correlate it to what you feel. And so this is definitely a really great way to kind of make that connection for kids, especially like in first grade, like early on, and kind of tackling that problem that some kids might have. And so this was kind of just the little lesson for today. I just did like 2, but it would be like kind of doing a whole sketchbook page, or like, you know, making the plate, like gluing them down. And so, because the one thing that I did my freshman year of college is we kind of did that with like printmaking. And so like we made a texture plate with like, I had like a flower, some leaves, I think there might have been like an acorn on here originally, and then we ran these, like we made the plates like with adhesive and glue, and so, and then we used oil-based ink, and like we printed it like a relief print, because basically you make your plate, but you're bringing it up instead of like cutting away. And so that would be a really cool thing if you're wanting to make it for either like bigger kids, like if you're wanting to adjust this for a higher grade level and you are going to experiment with printing. I mean, you could also do like hand printing, which would be more possible like in a public school, which would be a really cool option. And so moving on from this, kind of the idea after that was to make like a thumbnail sketch using these for the collage, because the actual lesson is to make a collage of a tree. And so you could just take, again, like a blank piece of notebook paper, kind of make a little box, mainly to scale up by like 18 by 24 would be best. I know it's like not scale. And so, but just so that way, because if you want your students to make a small version, just kind of sketching like what they want, if they want to be like, okay, I know I want to use yarn, I know I want to do texture rubbings for like this section of the tree, it just helps them plan, because then they're like, okay, if I need this to dry today, I'll do this today, start this, and then they'll be ready for me to do the next class period. Because you do want them to start thinking about that, because it just makes better use of your time, and then it just helps them with time management skills, which is really great for everybody to learn. And so kind of moving on from the actual lesson that I was like teaching today for the curriculum slam, just to kind of give y'all like idea of what the actual lesson itself is a little more. I did make kind of like a small version, like a really kind of basic version of like a tree like collage. And so since it's showing the tree throughout the season, I just did one tree throughout one cycle. But since they do have 18 by 24, and I also want to do it more passage over time, it's within a year. And then since they have a big pad of paper, they can do like a seed, like a sapling, a fully grown tree, or like a dying tree. Like they can split it into 4, 3, like kind of 2, however they really want to. It would just kind of be a discussion between the teacher and the students if you want to give them more than one option, or the teacher just deciding like when you actually get to sit down and see what school you're at and how much time you have, like which is more workable, just doing one or the other, or if you're combining them, like how many options you want to give. And so here I have summer, fall, winter, and then spring. And so in the summer I wanted to use yarn because I did want to show how they could do like kind of 3D stuff, and since it's soft, you know, leaves are normally more kind of like bushy and full in the summer, it kind of gives that effect. And then it goes into fall with like the falling leaves. And then here, kind of for that pile of leaves, I actually used dry acrylic paint that like I peeled off a paint palette and kind of like put together. And so that's kind of a really great option, because then also you can like save the paint scraps, and that's also like kids get interested in cleaning their paint palettes and they actually stay clean and don't get all dirty. And then I just did a little collage of fabric here, because the one thing is like here I kind of made the background out of you know, construction paper, because that's something that's really easy to get in schools. It's relatively inexpensive, so you'll probably have a lot of it in your budget. And so, and then it kind of moves on, but then this is also, going back to this real quick, it's just stuff that I have saved, because I've been saving up a lot of things just throughout the years that, you know, if you want to do a collage your first year, you might want to start saving things up that you don't necessarily need or want to use anymore, but then you feel bad throwing them away. Especially instead of maybe donate some of the stuff you have, but then also saving some of it just in a box for that way, kind of when you first start teaching, you have that backup. Okay, now moving on to the winter side, I just kind of made some snow, little snowflakes I have with like a chalk paint pen, as if there was like snow on the tree building up on the trunk here. And all these notes here are just kind of like what I was thinking of. So it's like, you know, cold, it's like cool colors, there's snow, or at least in most places, not necessarily in Texas. And then the spring, you know, there's blooming, it's bright, there's like small little leaves. And so you might not really be able to see it, but just kind of like some flowers and things, just some very simple little decorations there. And so I did, you know, stuff that was 3D, stuff that was 2D with paper, stuff that was actually 2D, like drawing on, because a lot of people think of a collage and they just think of like newspaper, paper, like mache, like magazines, but really a collage can be anything's mixed together. Especially if you look at like Robert Rauschenberg, like that's not kind of what a lot of people think of as a collage, but he's one of the most well-known collage artists. And so, which would be a really great example for this project, like an artist to use. And the only hard thing is, like, you know, some kids don't, I mean, of course they don't know a lot of artists, but they don't, not as interested in art history, so sometimes throwing a lot of different names out there is more confusing versus just like showing pictures or like personal examples that you've created. And so, but that's it for the project today. Hope y'all enjoyed this video. Hope it makes sense. Hope you can always maybe take part of it to use in your own classroom, or like an idea of how to just like change something in your own lesson plan, and think about how you can use the same lesson plan for multiple grades and like the little changes you'd have to make. But yeah, thank you.